All right, Bill and Brenda, if you're ready, I think we'll get started. Again, hello to everyone who's joined us tonight, and welcome to our webinar on how to have a wildly successful move-in. Seems like just yesterday we were talking about moving everyone out, and here we are at move-in again already. Time really does fly. I am Sherry Dunn with Alpha Fraternity Management, and I'm joined tonight by Alpha's business manager, Bill Horner, and our director of facility management, Brenda Slavens. Our business managers are a key part of our business management program, offering oversight, guidance, and support to our business management clients. Among other things, Brenda's teams ensure our facility clients have monthly inspections, tenant damages are assessed, capital improvement plans are created, and move-outs and ins are successful. Which brings us to tonight's topic, move-in. Alpha Fraternity Management moves in over 1,000 tenants each year, and tonight, Bill and Brenda will be sharing some of the most frequent questions our teams get about move-in and some best practices to help ensure yours is wildly successful. Alpha Fraternity Management has been focusing on the professional management of fraternities and sororities for almost 20 years now. Well, our core services include facility management, accounting and finance, and leasing and collections. Our tenure has allowed us to develop solutions to meet the unique needs of fraternities and sororities in ways that traditional property managers or a software program can't. We currently operate on 73 campuses in 36 different states and are frequently in talks with groups on new campuses. So let's get started with our topic for tonight. The move-in experience can set the tone for your house for the entire year. Parents are often seeing the house for the first time. Residents are settling into their rooms. New friends are being made, and everyone is excited for the latest chapter in their lives. Poor move-in experience can result in disappointment and complaints. A great move-in can help promote the lifelong, unique fraternal experience that everyone hopes their members receive. Tonight, we're going to do things a little bit differently. Rather than click through a side presentation, we've pulled together some of the most frequent questions we receive, and Bill is going to play the role of a House Corporation alumnus with a desire to have a successful move-in and a whole lot of questions. Brenda will provide answers and best practice recommendations. And we know that you may have questions of your own, and we have allowed time at the end to be sure that they get answered. So if you have any questions as we go along, please add them to the Q&A box at the bottom of your screen, and we'll address them at the end of our presentation. Okay, Bill, Brenda, take it away.
Hi, good evening. Thanks, Brenda, for taking some time to talk to my housing board a little bit about move-in. Looking forward to this because I need some help. One of the issues we currently have is that we do not have a specific move-in date, but I've heard rumblings out there in the housing world. What are your recommendations or Alpha's best practice on handling, when the lease does not have those specific dates and information?
Well, the first thing I would say on that is I would look at making that a correction in the near future, maybe for your following year's lease. It would be a best practice to have it in there with a specific date and time for a few different reasons. One of those reasons would be it helps you keep things very consistent and keeps everybody on the same communication channel with that. It also will allow you to have very specific billing dates that you can also add that to the lease and more communication going out ahead of time that gives very specific instructions instead of having people filtering in on different days, people coming early, the bulk of people coming a little bit later. It helps you get the house prepared. You have deadlines that you're telling both vendors or potentially a management company that is working with you, those very specific things to ensure that you're going to have a successful move-in day. And the first part of having a successful move-in day is having the day that you know exactly when people are coming, when it needs to be ready by, and when you have to have everything documented by. When you have those filtered days of like people just coming in at different times, you run the risk of a lot of things potentially going wrong before the bulk of people come in. And one of those things you don't want is parents to be showing up, seeing that there was a party a couple days before from 5-10 guys that might be in there, and then they feel that you did not have your chapter house ready for them. So that is one of the big things, is to definitely recommend that you have a lease date. In the event that you don't, again, keep it as consistent. I would put it out in communications and strongly encourage, by keeping the house locked down, you can kind of force a date and have them show up on that date because they cannot get access. But going forward, I would definitely recommend that we put that in place.
Okay, that's good. Good thoughts. The reason we haven't is because, we have these guys who come to us on the board and say, well, my apartment where I'm staying at ends July 31st and I gotta have a place to go. How does Alpha handle that situation if the move-in date is, let's just say, August 15th? I mean, how do I solve that?
Just say no.
Hmm.
No. It's
We need you
hard.
working for us then if it's just say no, because
It's
that's a true thing that has happened.
it's hard because you do have a desire to help them and you don't want them to be stuck for a few weeks or whatever the case might be.
Hmm.
And there are all those rare exceptions. You may allow a chapter officer to move in. I don't advise it necessarily, but I know there
Sure.
are some of those situations where you do have to work with that, or
Yeah.
you can choose to work with that. I avoid it at all costs. Alpha would
Okay.
recommend avoiding that at all costs because, again, it takes it back to kind of the same thing, that you don't have that lease date or it's not specified in your lease. People come in, you're going to run the risk that, they're not just coming in to stay there because they didn't have a place to stay for a few days. They're going to bring their buddies in. The
Hmm.
house doesn't look prepared at that point. So
Makes
you really
sense.
have to weigh in the recommendations. I had a house where we allowed that, and they wanted to come early because of rush events, and they wanted to grow the chapter and get those pledges, and everybody is a little
Did
bit
it work?
sympathetic to that. But in doing a little bit of research because of that question, and I knew the board was struggling with it, doing a little research, and to not make me sound overly neurotic, but I
Hmm.
went down the social media channel and found a posting of, I believe they called it a crash bash, which was a pre-party that had nothing
Yikes.
to do with Rush.
Hmm.
Luckily,
Yeah.
we washed it, and the board agreed not to let everybody move in early or the
Hmm.
officers to move in early for that reason, because it was blasted out there to everybody.
Hmm.
So something you really got to
Makes
be
sense.
careful of.
Good
I
point.
guess call them the sob stories, but
No, I think that's a good point. Now, again, talking about moving and having a date, which sounds great, but what kind of date do you choose? Or is it a day, 1, 2 days before classes start, or do you do August 1st? What's your recommendation?
you would have to know the academic class schedule. When do classes begin on that campus? We would not recommend that you do more than a week before move in,
Oh,
for reasons of
okay.
everybody shows up, no one has anything to do. And
Hmm.
then again, you run the risk of parties, damages, even before
Yeah.
the class has begun, because they definitely have a lot of time on their hands.
Okay. Makes sense. Kind of what you said too. Maybe some chaos that you don't want to deal with.
A little chaos.
Okay. So again, kind of continuing on that down that rabbit hole, I mentioned to you my summer, I have guys that rent apartments, but we also have been requested for guys to want to live in the chapter house in the summer, summer renters. And it sounds enticing for our board for financial reasons. What have you seen out there in the Greek housing world with that?
It's definitely, you have to weigh the pros and cons. You have, as a board, it's obviously financially it's a benefit
Yeah.
usually a benefit. I have found that summer renters aren't typically as rambunctious. They are there for classes and different schedules and stuff like that. From a management perspective, a management company perspective, it just makes things a little bit more difficult. You run the risk that with a summer renter, you don't they like to jump rooms for some reason. They will switch rooms. It's not the room they had been staying in. It's not the room they're moving into.
Yeah.
So you run a risk of that room not being ready. We can't get in there and fix things. So whoever moved out of that room, in theory, we would do a move out inspection and they might get charged for that stuff. But if something gets missed, someone moved in or they didn't move their stuff out in time, when I say moved out in time, they didn't get their stuff like maybe out of our way. It's nice to put everything in the center. So it's just harder to riskier, I should say. Plus, we can't get the room cleaned. And there has to be a very strong communication that goes out with that, that if you're moving into this room and you're staying there all year, you're still going to be responsible for damages when move out comes, but understand that you're not going to have your room cleaned. We're not going to be able to make these repairs because we can't take on that liability of coming in and we don't want to risk getting paint on your stuff or moving something out of the way and it getting damaged. So
Our guys have complained about that. I guess I could see that's why you shouldn't do that.
and in reality, people don't want their personal stuff being touched and move around. So if they don't do it themselves to get those things done, you do run that risk that you're going to have a couple rooms over that summer that aren't going to get repairs made to it. And although we typically do our best to mitigate missing any kind of damages, it does increase that odd a little bit more.
Yeah.
And another thing with that summer renter, I would say, is absolutely make sure they have a lease in place that covers where they're staying, because you have to hold them accountable in the event that something happens in the house or they had a party or made a mistake and damaged something. They need to be accountable. And if you don't have that lease in place, you essentially have nothing and you're going to end up having to pay to fix that.
Good. And again, with the move-in, so we've got the date, move-in day has arrived. There's a couple of us alum who live nearby. Um, what do you feel about housing board members and other alumni being present to welcome the guys and help move in stuff and all that good time stuff that happens?
You are very brave if you guys want to be part of a move-in day. I don't encourage it. I don't even encourage it for us to
Why
all
do you
be
say
present
that?
during that.
Like I mean, it sounds pretty harmless to me, having some extra hands there helping the guys move in their 3 televisions in a space of a closet.
Yes. 2 words, mama bears. Mama bears don't typically know a lot about chapter houses, so they come in a little bit anxious. They're leaving their kids there for the year. You have a lot of alumni present, maybe giving help. You have multiple people that several tenants and parents are coming to. You know the phrase, too many chefs in the kitchen.
Yeah.
You might overpromise something. We're going to take care of this. Somebody else gets wind of it, a different alumni board member, or even Alpha, in the case that you were working with us and we're saying this is how you have to go through these processes. Things get lost in translation. Things could get confused. And then in reality, when they're coming in, there's a lot of high emotions of leaving your kid there, and the boys coming, they're excited and they want to see their buddies, and the parents are frustrating them because they won't leave and they're standing there talking to the alumni. It will help keep things a lot more consistent and moving smoothly to let them just get in there, get settled, and go through an orientation process of how to put in work orders and how to do their move-in checklist and stuff like that.
Oh, okay. And again, what if we don't want us there, which is fine. Is there anything that alumni should do to kind of make that move-in day or move-in week a little easier for them? I mean, you mentioned for them settling in and everything, which is great, but and other than, having the rooms prepared, what else should alumni kind of have ready for them?
The more things you have ready ahead of time, the better off that move-in day is going to go. Because every move-in day, even the best one, there's going to be some form of chaos. Something will get missed, something will be forgotten, somebody's worked up about something.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
the most stuff you have done and off your plate ahead of time, making sure that your key situation is set up. You have keys ready to go. You should know your tenants that have paid their bills and the ones that have not. We want to get those
Oh,
doors locked up to prevent them from getting in and living in your house, owing you money all year long.
how do
Um,
you do that if they haven't paid their rent on day of move-in?
Well, a couple ways. If you're monitoring, then you know who is paying. We make sure that a lockbox on the door so that you're not
Oh,
running back and forth. You could put
okay.
like a real estate lockbox on that door,
Yeah,
put the key
yeah.
in it with a code.
Mm-hmm.
Once they pay their rent, we'll give them the code and go in there. Then we can remove that key box later.
It's a good
And
idea.
communication ahead of time. So plus they have other things in place that will make them a little bit easier. Like a roll off should be there. That's always advisable
Oh,
because they bring in so many boxes and they're discarding old stuff
what
or
size of a roll-off do
depends
you?
on the size of your house.
We
Uh,
have 25 guys.
I would recommend at least a 30-yard roll off just because there's a lot of
Okay.
boxes at that time
Yeah.
with moving.
Okay. That makes sense. Okay, great. I like the idea of that roll-off. Yeah, I've seen that around, but I'm like, God, that seems like a lot of trash. But I guess there's a lot of movement going on. And kind of again, staying with the move-in date, what about if you do know you have the date set, but then I'm going to have guys coming in various dates? I think you did mention the lockbox setup.
Mhm.
Um, again, how do you handle that efficiently when you may have, these 25, 30 guys coming in over the course of 7 days? Is there someone that's in charge of that, or someone they can talk to when it's like, hey, I'm coming into town here in 30 minutes. How do I get my key?
Yeah, and you could do the same thing that you do with people that haven't paid. You could always have a lockbox on that door. Another option that we like to work with is going directly with a house manager. A house manager
Oh,
can
okay.
get a set of keys to each bedroom. Specifically, I don't recommend giving them a master or giving them access to all other areas of the house, but bedroom
Wow.
keys, there's a key to whoever that first person arriving. Typically, we'd like
Mhm.
it to be a house manager or an officer, and they get those keys. We do not give keys to the ones that have not paid. Keep that in mind, but
Yeah,
have
I
those
guess you're right.
keys. That way, as guys come, they can turn those keys over to the ones who have paid.
Okay, that's good. So you mentioned, the rule off and having the home prepared. We're a housing core that, we have a little bit of money, but we don't have a huge budget. How, what are some of the key things or priority items would you recommend in that situation? And I guess even if you do have a lot of money, you still should probably prioritize things.
Mhm.
What do
Yeah.
you recommend, or how do you handle that?
Yeah, we have plenty of clients that are on a tighter budget. So the priorities always going to be life and safety items. You're going to want to make sure that you're in the event you have a commercial kitchen, you want to make sure the hood's been cleaned and serviced. You
Oh,
want to make sure the fire suppression has been tagged
think
and
about that.
serviced.
Okay.
Fire
Okay.
extinguishers, smoke detectors, suppression system. Your
Wow.
fire alarm panel should be up to date and working so they
Okay.
don't end up on fire watch. A lot of
What's
the
Fire Watch? What's
fire
Fire
watch is
Watch?
if your fire system is not at 100% working, the guys will have to be 24/7 walking that house in shifts. Um,
Oh,
or
okay.
potentially you have to have a resident advisor or somebody that you have come in.
Okay.
We've worked it out with chapter officers that they kind of delegate it to everybody throughout the house, but it is a 24/7 thing until that gets repaired because the fire
Yikes.
department will either kick you out or they'll put you on fire watch. So those are
Okay.
very, very big priorities
Okay.
that you want to focus on.
You mentioned a lot of good preventive things. I guess, how do you keep tabs on all of that? And that just seems like a lot.
with most homes, we try to have all of those things scheduled for summer. And I call that kind of like their summer preventative move in, move out stuff. There are
Okay.
homes that are on different schedules throughout the year, and it's more of a tracking thing. We work off of calendars. You know, if I know that this suppression is due and has to be done twice a year, you have to know your local codes. And so it may be quarterly for hood cleanings and suppression. It might be twice a
Mhm.
year. It might be annually. So just knowing
Mhm.
those things and then setting yourself reminders on a calendar is kind of the way I
Okay.
like to do a lot of those and just keep track of them. If
Yeah.
you can line them up to do everything like that in the summer, it's absolutely my best recommendation
Okay.
because it's one call and get them done.
If you had to put a dollar amount on all the things that you just mentioned, and maybe there's a few other items that you didn't yet, what would you recommend for me to put in my budget for next year when I'm planning my, 20, my 25, 26, 26, 27 budget? What type of dollar amount?
You really put me on the spot. I have no
Well, I
idea.
mean, we have maybe I don't know if we've only been spending about $2,500 for some of those things. And you did mention some stuff that we aren't maybe should be doing a little more regularly or aren't. Do you think it's 5 grand?
I would say you're safe budgeting 5 grand on
Okay.
those particular things and then keeping track of some other preventative maintenance items for your
Oh,
home, your
okay.
HVAC filter changes, light
Um,
bulbs. They don't want to move in and not have lights in their house. You want to make sure you're checking all of that.
yeah, I know guys don't like changing light bulbs.
Yeah, no, they do not. They do not. In fact, they will call you at 11 o'clock about their light
Yes,
bulb.
I believe that. Yeah.
Yes, they do.
Okay. So
And make sure
5,000. Okay.
make sure that your furniture and stuff, and that if it's provided in the lease, just make sure that that is accessible as well. I recommend checking those things kind of at move out to make sure you're going to have the right number of what you need.
Oh,
And
yeah.
then for me, some people don't have this in their budget. It would be the last of the priorities of things I just mentioned, but cleaning goes a long way. So some boards do recommend or have the guys clean their bedroom on the way out, and they should be clean for the guys moving in. I've seen that go south very fast where they do not clean. So,
Who brings a broom to college, I guess, or a vacuum to college.
and sometimes who knows what a broom is. So
What would you expect for a cleaning budget, Branda? Just a typical home. How much should I expect or look for a quote if you had,
an
again, maybe put a
average
dollar amount?
an average for 20 some guy size house, I would say I mean, if it hasn't been cleaned in years, it's going to be a little bit more, but you could average, depending on your area, 15 to 3,500.
Oh, okay. Okay. I guess it's all on what you want done, right, in your
Yes.
rooms and the
Yes. And you
bedroom
can be
if you want
selective
bedroom.
with it. You can
Hmm.
at least get the common areas done, or you can at least do bedrooms and alter it to what you
Sure.
need, what your needs are, what you think the biggest priority would be. It goes a long way to come into a clean house in your common areas, but as a mom, I would probably want to make sure
Yeah.
my son's room is clean.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned that, a lot of mama bears or papa bears or whoever bears are coming in and
Hmm.
it probably can go a long way. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, you sound like you're the expert, so I'm taking some good notes on this. Now, you did mention briefly, but can you give me a little more information about the communication that you do share? Or, we've usually just sent out a text message to the guys and say, "Hey, move-in's this day, and here's the door code." And, very casual, as I've said before, we didn't have a move-in date. So what do we think we need to plan for next year, or maybe even yet this year if I have time?
Communication goes a long way. So having as many details compiled into something that you give out to not just the tenants, but also let the parents know or the guarantors, whoever they may
Mm,
be. Um, I would recommend doing it at least a month ahead of time. That way they have time. And we all know that people sometimes don't like to read things, but you are not responsible for that. Your job is to get that
mm,
communication out there and keep it again as consistent as possible and
okay.
as much information. Like For example, letting them know that there's going to be a roll-off provided for them so they don't have to worry about how am I going to get rid of all this trash. Letting them know that
Oh,
if they don't pay their lease, security deposit and rent that first month, they are not getting a key to move in. Letting them know that the move-in time might be noon, making sure that they understand that they will have a move-in checklist, and that's kind of their, I always call it a cover your butt thing.
yeah. What's the move-in check? You mentioned that a few times. If you don't mind,
Yes.
what is that exactly?
Yeah. So it is basically just a straight out checklist of different areas of their house. It's any common area, and it's going to ask a list of questions.
Oh,
Does your room have damage to the walls? Do you notice any damage on
oh,
the floor?
okay.
Does your room have screens? Does the door
Hmm.
close and latch? Things like that, that I, like I said, I call it a cover your butt kind of
Yeah.
documentation. We do a very thorough process. Alpha recommends a thorough move-in process to keep things moving smoothly. Um, and but we also recommend to the guarantors, to the tenants, like do your own diligence on this one, just for
Mm.
your sake. If I had those informations in my phone and I got hit by a bus tomorrow, they don't have any documentation at move out. So you should also do that and make sure that you send those things back to us. And that move-in checklist should come back to us within 7 days. We store that and we use that at move out time and say, okay, he told me about this. I can't bill him
Okay.
for that.
I
Or
see.
he didn't tell me, so it wasn't there. And I can check that to photos and
Hmm.
say, yep, this was damage. We can charge this.
Yeah. Okay. That makes sense. Um, yeah, definitely to kind of, like you said, CYB,
Mhm.
cover your butt, but you're right. Okay.
And when you do, if you do that move and checklist, I also would recommend do not go past a 7 day mark, because they might break the
Okay.
window in 3 months and send you a checklist that says, oh, my window's broken.
Oh,
It's been 3 months. You have
it's
give them a
yeah, yeah, yeah. Statute of limitations, so to speak.
deadline.
Okay. Now, obviously a lot of activities happening that day in the home, and on parking. How do you guys direct all that in some, urban locations where our chapter house is? It's quite tight, quite urban. What are some things that Alpha could help me with?
I would recommend that you know what the local city ordinances might be with that,
Okay.
as far as street parking, um,
Okay.
even parking in the yard. Sometimes, Michigan's a little more strict on something like that. Some might not
Mhm.
care. You may care if they park on your lawn. And so you want to kind of
Mhm.
mitigate that ahead of time.
Yeah.
Again, I would know those things ahead of time and put them in some kind of early on communication where you're clearing that up for them. So when they do show up and say something, if they have to be told, like, you have to move, all of this information was given to you. Let's go back and look at that. But
Yeah.
as much as you can get that out there, you also not run the risk. You also will help yourself not get 50 emails prior to move-in day asking you all of these questions, because you put that out a month ahead of time. So you
Makes
can always
sense.
follow up with, hey, did you read this? It covers
Yeah.
everything, as opposed to like, let's go through all this stuff now. Because you're going to be
Okay.
busy too, getting ready for move in.
Yeah. That's a good point. Now I know, again, you have the parents who are very helpful and want to do everything. And what's your policy on a parent or even parents going together, and maybe you mentioned that cleaning, and we can only really afford, right now our budget only allows maybe that common area. We just don't have the funds to do all the bedrooms. Where do you draw the line at on that situation?
It's really a personal decision for the board. We don't recommend that as a best practice for a couple reasons. We've had parents that we've allowed to do that, and then the next thing you
Mhm.
know, you're getting receipts to reimburse them because
Oh,
they don't understand, and they think that, well, if you
hmm.
do it, I had to come do it, so you should refund me.
Oh,
Or I had to do all these things when I moved in, so you need to give my son a rent credit. So you run that risk. The other thing is
Yeah.
it needs to be very clear that they have to have a licensed professional do this. You don't want to just bring in Jim Bob from down the street who does some little side jobs for you but he
Why?
doesn't, and then he gets hurt and now he has no insurance. That could become a potential liability to the board specifically, not the parents, but the board. So
Mm-hmm.
you
Yeah.
also don't necessarily know the quality of work you might get. And I would be a little bit more cautious about what are they doing.
Mm-hmm.
So it wouldn't be something recommended. And that's why we usually have our service techs available on move-in day and a facility
Okay.
manager that we know and that has that certificate
So
of
even though your office is in Ann Arbor, you guys are able to do that at Oregon or Washington?
Yes. Yes, we do
Okay.
contract with the for the facility management contract with us, we do have the option to have a local facility manager. That local facility
Oh,
manager typically will act as a service technician as well. We like to try to get that little dual role in there out of state so that
okay.
you have somebody and he's there as much as possible. We don't want to sit them there for 8 hours and run up
Mm-hmm.
any kind of bills or anything. But for that initial part of the move-in, we like to have them there. They can notate anything that they see, do those last minute touch-ups. If they see something, walk the house for documentation with the boys who arrive first, stuff like that. And then they handle those
Okay.
issues. But they also have the ability to post things throughout the house where it tells them exactly how to submit that service request. Because we don't want to do that all on move-in day because then it can spiral out of hand with 25, 50 moms and dads saying, well, what about this? What about this? What about
Mm.
this? As opposed to, this is our process. Here you go. This is how you put that service request in.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right. It can get really out of hand quickly.
Mm-hmm.
Um, you did touch upon this a little bit, but not in depth. But you mentioned about, of course, the guys having their move-in checklist for their bedroom and getting that in. And you mentioned about, you know, having the home prepared. What should I be doing to document the house or to protect our asset? Because that's really my duty as my fiduciary duty, but also as the physical aspect of the chapter home.
Yeah. We are a very big fan of photo documentation. So one of the things that we like to train on is, in a very short explanation of it, is I want to see every square inch of that house prior to move-in day. So that will protect you. It does also protect them because let's face it, in a situation, somebody makes a little mistake and they're like, hey, I'm going to charge you for this. If I can go back and see it's in that photo, or they took their own photo and can show you it's in there, they're not responsible for that at that point. It was there, it existed. We didn't
Yeah.
have the budget to fix it. So
Okay. Right.
I don't want to, so you, on many levels, you avoid a headache of you having to deal with a dispute that could have been
Hmm.
avoided. Because
Hmm.
if you're going through that house and you were just documenting every square inch of it with photos that you can just zoom in and check on move out time, it saves you disputes, it saves angry parents, it saves, and it also saves
Yeah,
you money because you can
I
hold them
bet.
accountable for something that they might be claiming was there. And then you have the ability to show
Yeah.
them and say, it's not.
Have you had homes where they've come to Alpha and they've seen a positive difference in terms of capturing those damages, or is it really not that big of a deal?
Oh no, gosh, it's a very big deal. I mean,
Because we're not doing that right now.
then you would see a very big difference,
Mm.
because you're not going to remember something today when it comes time for you to refund security deposits in May.
Hmm.
I mean, you might, but you have a better
Hmm.
memory than I do at that point. It's
Okay.
just, it will save you a lot. And
Okay.
it potentially protects your asset a ton in that situation to hold them
Yeah.
accountable. When you're not documenting, my assumption would be that there's a lot of stuff that you're paying to fix come next summer, last summer,
Yeah.
that
Maybe that's why I don't
just
have any money to do the other things I mentioned.
Correct. That
Yeah.
maybe they should have been responsible
Yeah.
for. And at the very
Okay.
least, you might not have a lot of money still, but you have the money from them to at least fix the
Hmm.
stuff that happened, as opposed to each year
Hmm.
it just keeps compiling into
Oh,
more and
yeah.
more things that you need to fix.
Yeah. Now, I need to loop back again with the guys with that move-in sheet, and you mentioned the 7 days. Is that because that's just a recommendation, or is that a law, or how does that all handled with the whole documentation
I,
situation at the move-in?
it is a law that in most states that we are
Okay.
required or that you would be required to provide them a move-in
Oh,
checklist.
okay.
At that point, it is basically their responsibility to fill this out and turn it in, and that is
Hmm.
something that we like to really stress during the
Hmm.
not during the orientation call, but also during that month before communication of this is something you really want to fill out and turn back into us within those 7 days because this is going to protect you. And
Okay.
but we are required to present that to them. And if you present it through emails or communications, as well as we like to make sure that you put those in the room so they have it right there front and center.
Yeah. Okay. You also just mentioned again the word orientation. What do you mean orientation? I mean, they get orientation going to college and school, but what kind of orientation are you doing for my guys at the
Yeah,
house?
good question. I knew you were going to ask me that when I said it. So, so the orientation, we call it, it's like a meeting within the first 7 to 10 days. We try to do them
Okay.
before classes where as many as the tenants can be available as possible, whether it's in person
Okay.
or a Zoom call. But it really just kind of sets the groundwork, just like school orientation for the year. It'll set that groundwork of these are some of the key points from your lease that you might be responsible for. These are the things that we want to see for the year from you. Sets the expectations of how they should treat the home, your asset, how they should be
Okay.
responsible for their guest. And these are potential charges that come their way if they have people come in and allow them to vandalize the home or cause damages. Goes over some other key points of their lease, payments, damage charge payments, life
Okay.
and safety items, a fire drill potentially that, these are your exit plans. This is who we are. Um, you introduce yourself so they know like who their point of contact is. And it also allows you to kind of meet the guys, build that relationship so they know, hey, I'm the one that's going to be coming to you and making sure that your work orders are getting done. I'm the one that's going to be reaching out to you and saying, hey, stop it.
A
Don't do
face
that.
to yeah, a face to a name, that it's
Yeah.
not just like you said, you guys do stuff all across the country, so that the way there is someone that they can connect with, I guess. Is that what you guys try to do?
Yeah. And building the relationship is probably one of um a big recommendation of Alpha. I personally have really found that to be very successful for me is to just really build that
I could see
relationship.
that.
Specifically, your
Yeah.
officers, your house manager, they need to feel comfortable
Hmm.
telling you things. And at that point, a lot
Yeah.
of times you can work with them and just be like, hey, why? Why did I just patch this drywall hole? And you learn stuff from them too. Why did I just patch a
Yeah.
drywall hole and the next day we came back to paint it and you punched a hole in it again? And I've learned, hey, Miranda, it looked like a bullseye. We just wanted to hit it again. So in that
Hmm.
kind of teaches you a lesson of, okay, use mud that dries faster and let's get this painted quicker because they see that as this. So you learn stuff from them too, building that relationship. But it also was a little easier, like, why'd you do it and who did it? They might feel
Hmm.
more comfortable saying, this person's responsible. We should not all be responsible for it.
Hmm. Okay. That makes a lot of sense, and I do like that idea of the orientation. That's someone they could talk to, maybe ask some questions
Mhm.
about things. That's good. Um, I had written down. Oh yeah, you mentioned the move in, taking pictures, documenting things, but what then? Now I'm assuming then you guys come back at, the holiday season, and then you come back maybe at spring break. Um, in terms of protecting my home, what do I do is that how it works? Because that's what we've been doing, is a
Well,
very irregular situation.
that protects the house when it's empty. It will help you make sure things are locked up and things
Mhm.
aren't freezing during that time. But a big relationship building point is we do have, even out of state, with those local facility managers and technicians, they're in
Mhm.
the house once a week. It might be
Oh,
a quick little informal walkthrough of 15 minutes of like, hey,
really? Okay.
yeah, my bathroom's not flooding and the guys decided not to tell us about it. We're golden.
Oh,
Or he might be there fixing some stuff. But we also recommend doing a very formal inspection where we're taking photos and we're
okay.
documenting issues that we might see. And it might not just be oh, the guys did this again. It might
Mhm.
be, I see that this is not really a problem right now, but hey, client, this is something you should keep on your radar. This is something you want to budget for. We're trying to protect your asset. This is a recommendation that
Well, yeah,
you,
we could have used that last year when our hot water tank was showing a leak underneath, but we didn't know about it until 10 months later.
yeah. And that's where you have a very big difference between, sometimes people will
Mhm.
work with
Mhm.
I can't think, like co-ops and stuff like that. Just they're a resource, but they're not a property manager.
Mhm.
They're not going to be in there
Mhm.
actually like looking at your home every single week and
Physically
giving
doing.
you, yeah, the
Mhm.
eyes and ears that can say,
That's
this
great.
kitchen feels really cold. It's 20 degrees outside. I'm going to put a space heater in here for the night to avoid any kind of frozen pipes.
Hmm. Yeah, definitely in old homes. That's something that happens a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so you've mentioned about during the orientation or actually the move-in, when there be any maybe maintenance issues, I don't have a screen, and I want a screen so bugs don't come in here. What what's the process, or how does Alpha handle all those complaints and just nagging issues that the guys just constantly call you on, during those first, 10, 15 days?
We have a moving communication that will give them, so we do notifications for this on a couple different levels. I like to make sure that we have a flyer posted in the house that goes through that entire process of, this is who your asset manager is. And when I say asset manager,
Yeah,
this
what's
would be
that?
part of the facility department. So
Oh, okay.
um or like
This is someone they could
some of our
call.
staff. Yes, this is your
Okay.
asset manager. They are solely responsible for working with the client, the board, as well as talking to those tenants. They would be the ones to call and say, hey, who created this damage? What is going on? Maybe sending out notices to them of like, stop doing that, get off the roof,
Mm-hmm.
you're going to get fined.
Mm-hmm.
We also
Mm-hmm.
have the facility manager who reports to an asset manager, and that person gets in the home to do those work orders and to oversee and does the informal and the
Okay.
formal inspections. But they would
Do
be
you have
they
a
bring up
portal?
those flyers.
Like, I'm sorry, how do they put that in? Do they just call the asset manager anytime there's an issue, or what methods do they have to get
It's
like, and that screen's not there, or my doorknob isn't quite working right here and I want it locked before I get off to classes here next week?
It's best to, when you build that relationship, you do have that little bit of open communication. We do try to streamline putting in those service requests, and those are the flyers that we hang in the house. So it kind of
Oh,
introduces your
okay.
asset manager with their
Okay.
contact, but it also provides the email address and the after hours on the after
Oh,
hours emergency phone number, so they know how to report.
okay.
Work orders go to the service email, and you have that
Hmm.
primary contact of the asset manager to follow
Great.
up on whatever that work order might be. And then
Okay.
if it's an emergency, here's the number you call, follow these prompts,
Yeah.
and we'll have someone get in touch with you.
Like that hot water leak we had last year.
Yes.
Someone should have been calling on that. Okay, that's great. That's good to know that they have someone dedicated to their home that they can try to connect with or discuss the problem and hopefully work through a solution. Because I know I'm getting tired of those kind of calls
Mhm.
myself as being on the housing board. Um, you know, my guys, they come in and of course classes get started, and we have a pretty nice kitchen in our home, but haven't been real successful with getting that kitchen kind of functional and being able to get a meal program or something. I'm really out of the loop with that. What's going on with that area that Alpha would be able to give me some quick thoughts on?
Well, is the question that you're asking how to get the kitchen functional or
Yes,
setting
I
up a
want to
meal?
get it up and running. We have all the parts, I think. We have the stove, we have a dishwasher, we have all those things, but we haven't had a meal program in quite some time. And what does Alpha recommend? Is it really worth having a meal plan? And if so, how do you handle getting that kitchen ready to go? And what do I need to do?
The kitchen, to get that ready to go, if you have a commercial kitchen,
Hmm.
you will have to have like a small groups certification, basically, that goes through
Okay.
the city. So it would just require any typical city type inspection where they will
Okay.
come in. A lot of times, if you do obtain a contract with a food service vendor, they handle a lot of that.
Oh,
And then
okay.
the portions that they would not be responsible for is something that we come in and we make sure those things,
Okay.
and that food service vendor kind of has the same process of reporting work orders to us as the tenants would, where they're just like, hey, dishwasher's not working, the freezer's not cooling. We get
Makes
somebody in
sense.
there and we look into those things. And
Okay.
we do recommend a food service vendor if there's a lot of nuances to it, and you would probably have to talk to our business managers a little more. But
Okay.
just because they do handle a little more of that direct contact with food
Okay.
service vendors and recommendations, but we do recommend them as long as that all the guys in the house or the chapter should be
Hmm.
participating in this. That way you're
Hmm.
covering your cost as and not losing by feeding all of
Yeah.
them in that situation.
If for some reason we decide not to have, unfortunately, that meal plan, but we have this kitchen, what does Alpha recommend in that situation that we're not going to have a meal plan and and no one professionally, so to speak, is going to use that kitchen? We've been letting the guys just use it.
You have a
What
big
do you think on
liability with
that
that.
situation? Yeah, what do you think about that?
A commercial stove is not like a
Yeah.
residential stove. So you run a very high liability that there could be an issue with something like that in the kitchen.
Okay.
20 some year old boys don't typically know how to operate a big gas commercial stove.
Yeah, I don't.
Um, we personally would recommend probably locking off that kitchen and
Oh, okay.
potentially having a night kitchen where they do have access to certain things.
What does
Or,
that mean? Like a night kitchen, or what would we need to do to have just something if we would have to lock down the kitchen? Because we'd have a riot if they can't get in there and
yeah.
use the microwave.
And we do have clients that will allow them to use those commercial kitchens. It just
Hmm.
is a little bit riskier and not fully
Yeah. Oh, I
recommended
could
in
see
that
that.
situation. A
Mhm.
night kitchen might just have in their dining room area, they might have bottle machines. You have like a little snack freezer, snack cooler that I would call it. So they are able to
Okay.
put certain things in there. They have a
Okay.
microwave, maybe a toaster, a coffee maker, stuff like that. So it's like
Okay.
bare essentials, but they still have the ability to make certain things.
Hmm. Yeah. That's a good idea of maybe locking the kitchen down because I could see that getting a little scary in some situations. Okay. Wonderful. I think um you kind of covered everything. The big thing I had was some like if people don't pay, but you covered that early on because that's been an issue of ours with like the lockbox idea
Mhm.
and so forth. So this is great. So I took some good notes. So thank you, Branda.
You're so welcome.
Yeah, great job, Bill and Brenda. We'll open up the meeting to any questions that anyone has about tonight's topics or any others at this time. So please just add your question to the Q&A box. We have a couple that have come through already. I apologize if you've covered this before, but how do you handle multiple move-in dates due to sports or special events?
So you the key again is just going to be very consistent with it. There's going to be a lot of communication for that if you're allowing that. I do go back to allowing people to move in early is not recommended, but if you're having potentially you have a fraternity in the house and you might have non-fraternity members where because the house wasn't full and you rented out some different rooms. It's always advised to try to keep it as consistent as possible with the same move-in date for everybody. But in the situation we don't, we work off of a kind of the lock boxes to monitor that and making sure that they have access to, the door code would be provided for them on the day of move in. And when I say door code, a lot of the chapter houses will have exterior door codes, and that makes it easy to get vendors in and stuff through the year when we don't always have somebody sitting there waiting. So you give them that door code, they go in with the key box to their bedroom door and they have a code there, they get their key, they should have a move-in checklist waiting for them. So it just takes a lot of communication. You're just going to keep everything streamlined with communicating with that person. It's absolutely doable, just not always advisable. But
I'd like to add to it, as an Alpha employee, again, everything Brenda says is correct. And as a business manager, on the cases where I've had clients do this, the client, along with Alpha, as Brenda mentioned, the word communication, makes it very black and white to that person or persons that, in effect, you are taking responsibility for that home, meaning damages, and not even so much that, but just the general liability just increases. I'm probably saying tenfold is a bit dramatic, but hey, anything could happen. So again, I think it is, like Brenda said even earlier, on individual basis, but it should really be understood that this is an exception and that no shenanigans would be tolerated. And that's again where a property management company like us and Branda's team to monitor that.
mm-hmm.
Brenda, I think this is going to be your favorite question of the evening. Rooms are supplied to brothers with house-owned furniture in them. How do you handle a situation where brothers don't want that furniture in their room? Who's responsible for storing the furniture that the brothers remove from their room if there is no place in the house to store the items? Who pays for the storage?
Oh dear.
You threw me off on that one.
Yeah, that's a good question. That is a good
I think
question.
we're laughing, everyone, because we face this every single year.
You find a closet in the basement.
I was gonna say you threw me whenever you said like there's no storage in the
No
house. I was like,
storage in the
well,
house. I bet there is storage, but the guys have taken it and junked it up with stuff that they're not supposed to.
yeah. Yeah.
Well, I guess let's break it down in a
place.
couple of parts. I mean, one is the fact that the brothers don't want the furniture that's already there. And then what happens if, that has to be stored and who pays for it?
I'll let you answer it, Brenda, but I was going to say that it's their responsibility, Sherry.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It would be their
the house,
responsibility.
because in the lease, if they did their lease properly, it would stayed in there because like Brenda and her team would make sure if the lease says they get a bed, a mattress, and a desk and a dresser, let's just say it's something like that, and the lease states that, then they take responsibility for that. And I think that is on them to properly store it wherever they can and be responsible for it. Because guess what? The pictures were taken with those items in that room, right, Branda?
Right.
For the documentation was done and they have a facility agreement with us. Branda did, Branda's team did what we needed to do. And again, it becomes the responsibility of that, of that, of that tenant, that member of the house. Yes,
Yep.
absolutely.
Great.
So have to get creative, I guess.
Well, so we have another question. Is there any way to guard against brothers bringing in bed bugs or other infestations? Some brothers want to bring in furniture that is used or new.
Yeah, that has actually happened in the past. We had a house where they told us after the fact that they brought in couches that they found on the street corner where somebody was disposing of them. It did absolutely cause a serious infestation of bed bugs that took thousands of dollars to mitigate that situation. They are my worst nightmare. I've worked in a lot of property management where we've dealt with that. So When we know that, we definitely advise against it. We do recommend in part of our preventative maintenance plans to the clients that we have a regular pest control service. So we do try to get a lot of those other things. They're not coming in regularly treating for bed bugs unless that's an issue, but for other things like mice, roaches, flies, stuff like that, we try to get ahead of that to prevent those kind of things from happening. So we, if they talk to us for approval on that kind of thing, we try to oversee the situation and kind of dig into the questioning. We always alert the board to those kinds of things just to make sure that they are okay with that, bringing in all this other furniture and stuff. You can only do so much because a lot of times they're just not always going to tell you that kind of thing. But when we had the bed bug situation, we did identify what and who and why, and that person ended up being responsible for that because it went for weeks and months with spreading from room to room.
I will, and I'm not saying that renter's insurance solves everything, but it does bring up a good point that Alpha highly recommends renter's insurance, and Alpha partners with a vendor, which is great for Housing Corp, so they don't have to worry about that. The members are covered with their national dues, which usually has liability portions, but that doesn't cover any personal belongings or if there were to be damages in the room that are caused by unforeseen circumstances other than, and not negligence, of course. And we work with a partner that it's a very, very affordable. And I think that, not to say that that covers bed bugs, but it's just another way to protect against something like similar to those unforeseen circumstances.
Mhm.
Okay, well, we've come to the end of our evening. Brenda, Bill, fantastic job. We appreciate it. Everyone who's joined us, thank you. Whether you need an on-site consistent presence or simply oversight, we at Alpha Fraternity Management, we have a solution for you. So please don't hesitate to reach out if it's just a question or you want to learn more. We have an email address showing here as well as a phone number. You can also get that information on our website. We thank you again very much and wish you all a good evening. We'll see you again soon.